There we go. Shika, hello.
Hey, thank you so much for calling me on. And thank you so much, Greg, for your work so far. It's honestly been revelatory for me. I'm a quantum coach, so I do, practice a lot of these with my clients, and I do follow a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work as well. And but I wanted to share that your work has really helped me build a solid foundation based on science,
Mm.
like you shared, Nassim, and yours. And that really helps, like you said, the left brain, it really calms it down, and it helps me, even the nervous system, it really does. So my question to you is, after understanding all of these, and like you so beautifully shared that there's math, there's physics, and then everything, built on top of them. And while these are the sciences and then pure sciences, and we go higher, uh, the economic systems, technology, social systems, and the way we live are also directly affected by advancements in these fields, right? And I know that you feel and you've shared that these systems are going to have a radical transformation. I'm very curious to know your thoughts on, especially the political systems and countries and governments, how they'll function. Once this knowledge is known, I'm not sure how much is known to them. That it probably is already, but how it'll function most effectively. Um, that's the first question. And my second is, I'm curious if you're familiar with human design and what you believe about the scientific origins of that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And so I just want to make sure, are you still with me so I can
I am.
clarify? So I just want to make sure you're asking in the first question how the technology that could possibly be revealed through disclosure would impact governments and society and technology. Is that what you're asking?
Um, it's actually not. So I'll just rephrase to make sure I'm sharing it accurately. Is that the information that you've shared right now has widespread implications on a lot of industries, right? Pharmaceuticals, technology,
Sure.
governments, the way we function. And so, how do you foresee a new world, a new paradigm being birthed,
Ah,
right? So, it could be,
I see.
yeah. So, will
Yeah.
countries still be countries? How do you foresee that?
Okay, I appreciate the clarity and I appreciate you saying what the signal dropped out briefly when you were asking the question and I missed part of it. So thank you for that. And it's a very good question. I was just on a panel discussion yesterday with the Arlington Institute where we were having the same conversation. I think it's no secret to anyone listening to this program that number one, the world is changing. Even those that were hesitant to accept that now know that something is up, and that we are facing for the first time as a civilization in the modern world, not just one crisis that we could all rally around to remedy, which has happened in the past. In the past, we've had maybe a financial crisis, or we have a war, or in 1918 there was a pandemic. But what's happening right now is we're facing simultaneously, this is the first time that the modern world has simultaneously faced so many crises at the same time. And depending on how you want to view those crises, there obviously is a pandemic, regardless of how we feel about, how it came about or where it came from. That the fact is, we're dealing with a virus in the world right now. There obviously is a financial crisis. They're trying to hide it, but it's becoming more and more difficult. The world is based upon the dollar. The dollar is in trouble. It's losing its value because it is being diluted through economic policies that are making it weaker and weaker, which everything else appears to become more and more expensive. The truth is, it's not more expensive. It's just that the dollar is weaker and it takes more dollars to buy the same thing. This is affect the whole world. Is based upon what happens with the dollar, and as is interest rates begin to rise. That means debt becomes more expensive, which means banks and governments are going to collapse. And they're trying to put that off for as long as possible. So that's a crisis right there. Supply chain crisis, that we're dealing with right now. Climate change is a fact. As geologists, I've been saying this for 30 years. We didn't cause it. We're contributing to it, but we did not cause climate change, and we should have been preparing for it so it wouldn't hurt us and people wouldn't suffer the way that they are now. Burying power lines, for example, so that they're not affected by severe weather, and shoring up vulnerable communities. But there was a denial, and so that was never done. So the fact is, all these things are happening now. To answer your question, they are only frightening when we have nothing else to go to. And this is the value, I think, of understanding what we're saying and what disclosure and the disclosure of other ways of solving the problems, other technologies can offer to us, is that we need to be building a parallel system. We need a parallel economic system. We need a parallel financial system. We need a parallel system of generating reliable, abundant, inexpensive electricity for everyone that wants it. Not all cultures want electricity. I've been with many that do not, and they do just fine. Food is becoming a big issue as climate change shifts the growing seasons. We need parallel systems of growing food in sustainable ways that are healthy without using the GMOs, which is what a lot of, the UN believes that's the way to go right now. So they're trying to buy a lot of agricultural land and using GMOs to create what they call food security, but it may not be healthy food. So we need a parallel system for all of these things. And if we have that, and I firmly believe this, I believe there is a way to transition without people being hurt in the transition. Where people get hurt is when a system either collapses or it's destroyed intentionally to make another system more attractive. That's where people get hurt. But if we can build a parallel system and transition as it makes sense into those new ways of living, then the old systems falling away don't look so scary. They served us. They got us to where we are. The world changed. They're not working. And now we transition into a new system. The path that we're on right now, unfortunately, the people that can least afford the sudden shifts are those that are extreme poverty, living paycheck to paycheck, very vulnerable, who have been made even more vulnerable through the pandemic. People that weren't now are even more vulnerable. And unfortunately, they're the ones that can least afford a jolt in the systems, and they're the ones that are going to be most affected. And I believe it's unnecessary. I personally believe it's unnecessary. We can do this in a healthy, smart, responsible way, but we have to step up and say, this is what we choose. There was, I'm a child of, I was born in the 50s, I'm a child of the 60s. And this comes to mind so many times. I remember there was a song in 1968 by a group, at that time it was called 10 Years After. An amazing guitarist named Alvin Lee, blues player. And they did a very powerful song, and the words of that song come up to me almost every day. The refrain from the song is, I'd love to change the world, but I don't know what to do, so I'll leave it up to you. And unfortunately, this is what's happening. People know something's wrong. They don't like where it's going. They don't know what to do, and they're waiting for somebody else to take the lead. And that creates a vacuum. And into that vacuum, we become very vulnerable. And this is where governments can sweep in. And I'm not saying governments have to be bad, but if the government is based on power and control, then it can sweep in with more power and control. Governments don't have to be that way. There are other forms of government that support their people because they care about them, and they're not based in power and control. So as we build parallel systems of finance and economy, decentralized, localized living is the key. localized living. So localized economies, localized finance, localized food, localized energy, community. These are the things that are important right now. And interestingly, they are the very things that we're being asked to move away from. If we leave it to the powers that be, they want centralization. They want us living in large population centers. They want us, more dependent upon government resources for our livelihoods. And maybe in another world, in other conditions, that might be a good thing. My personal feeling is, looking at the simultaneous crises that we're living right now, the healthiest thing that we could do, and what our ancestors have always done, I mean, there's a history, there's a precedent for this, is localized living in community, where you don't have to worry if a supply chain breaks down, because everything is local. And you're supporting one another. And if food is contaminated, you don't have to worry about it, because it comes farm to table. It comes from a block away from your house. And it's a healthy way to at least go through this transition. So the disclosures that we're talking about, if people are not thinking about building a parallel system that coexists with the existing system, then they can feel threatened. And I'm not talking, I have friends and colleagues that believe everything has to fall apart before we can build a new system. I don't subscribe to that. That's where people get hurt. Let's be smart. Let's build the new systems now while we have the choice. And use the old systems as long as they work. And when they don't work, bless them and let them go, because we have new systems that are now up and running. And that's one approach. There was a book I wrote in 2010. It was called Deep Truth. And I talk about this. I said, one of three things will happen in the very near future. And I don't know, at that time, 2010, I didn't know which of those three it would be. I would say, number one, either the powers that be and the people of the world recognize that we're on an unsustainable path, and so we consciously begin to build the new systems while the old systems are still working, so that we can transition easily and people don't get hurt. That's one path. Unfortunately, humans don't think that way typically. So the second path is that as the systems break down one at a time, we begin to address them piecemeal. So, maybe the energy grid falls apart and we say, okay, we're going to fix that. And then the financial system breaks down and we say, okay, we're going to fix that. And we just do it. We fix it when it breaks. We wait till it breaks before we fix it. We've been doing some of that. The third path was the least desirable, and in my opinion, I think it's the one we're on now, is the path where, because we have not been proactive in the past and made choices when we could, we lose our options, and choices are made for us, and the system is pushed to the limits until it breaks. And then we have to build a new system. And unless something changes, it looks like we're kind of on path between number 2 and number 3. We're trying to fix systems as they're breaking, but they're breaking so fast, it's going to look like everything's breaking all at once. So that's where I see us. The bottom line is, I have no doubt and absolute confidence that we will get through it, we'll transcend. We don't want to just survive. We will thrive in a new world that is based upon new ways of thinking, and new ways of thinking of our relationship to the cosmos, to our planet, and to our own bodies. And that's why Sim and I built this course, because we're giving you the foundation for those new ways of thinking. And as we begin to shift that thinking, we're changed in the presence of those shifts. And that change is what becomes the foundation for the way we solve our problems. So that was a really long answer to a short question, but I am an optimist, and I'm also a realist. So I'm optimistic about our future. Realistically, we're in the change. The only way out of it is to go through it. And we are, Sim, myself, and many of our colleagues, and you, many of you listening, we're in this together, and we're working to come through it in the healthiest way possible for ourselves and our families and our children and in our future. So I so appreciate everything that everyone's doing. So that's how I would answer that question. And I want to thank you for the question. And Noah, what I want to say to you is I spent so much time trying to bring the systems up that were down.
Yeah.
That was a good 10 or 15 minutes. I'm happy to go a little bit longer if you and your team are available. If you're not, I don't want to jam anybody up. I completely understand.
We will go as long as we can, Gregg. Thank you for
Okay.
your time. Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, let's do a couple more here.
Great. Thank you, Gregg, and thank you, Ishika, for coming on for a question.
If I may, I had a second question which I don't think was answered related to human design.
I know of the human design process. I am not knowledgeable enough to really be able to address the question in a responsible way. And I'm not sure what I heard in the question was, how I feel about or what my comment would be. My understanding of human design is that there are fundamental blueprints genetically that inform our life path, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. There can be. I also believe that we are born with the ability to transcend that blueprint. So, in other words, we come into the world from the from the cosmic birth factory, and we come in with a code preset to get us through life. And if we do nothing to make no conscious choices, that code will get us through. It will get us through. And, and many people do that. There's no judgment, no right, wrong, good, or bad. As we become conscious and aware and awakened of who we are and our potential, I believe we are not bound to that blueprint, that we can transcend that blueprint to discover what it means to be the best version of ourselves, and even if that version is very different than the original blueprint. So that's my personal feeling, but I can't speak specifically to to elements of the human design process.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you answering it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ishika.
All right, thank you.